What if the way your brain ages, remembers, and even slowly declines is not just something you inherit or accept, but something that is actively shaped every single night while you sleep? Because according to a growing body of modern neuroscience, your brain is not shutting down when you rest, it is switching into one of its most active maintenance states. During sleep, it performs a deep internal cleaning process, removing waste materials linked with memory loss, cognitive decline, and conditions like Alzheimer's disease. And here's the part most people never consider. If your evening habits are wrong, or if you have no real routine at all, you may be interfering with that natural cleaning system without even realizing it. This is not a loose theory or a wellness trend. It is now supported by direct human evidence. In October 2024, researchers at Oregon Health and Science University used live imaging during neurosurgical procedures to observe something that had only been theorized for years: the brain's built in waste removal system working in real time. What they saw confirmed the existence of what scientists call the glymphatic system, a network responsible for clearing out metabolic waste from the brain. This system essentially acts like a biological drainage and cleaning network, and it only becomes highly active under specific conditions, most importantly, during deep restorative sleep. The driving force behind this system is not medication or external intervention. It is sleep itself, specifically the deeper stages of sleep that many people lose as they age. And this is where the concern becomes more serious. A large number of adults, especially those over 60, are not consistently reaching or maintaining the depth of sleep required for this system to work at full efficiency. The result is not just feeling tired, it can show up as mental fog, slower thinking, difficulty remembering names, or the sense that the mind is not as sharp as it used to be. Many people interpret these changes as a normal and unavoidable part of aging. It becomes a quiet assumption. Getting older means getting slower, especially mentally. But current research challenges that belief. The evidence suggests that the brain retains a strong capacity for repair and regeneration, even in later decades of life, including the 70s and 80s, provided it is given the right biological conditions. In other words, decline is not simply a fixed path, it is strongly influenced by daily patterns, especially those tied to sleep quality. One of the most underestimated windows of influence is the short period before sleep begins, roughly the 30 to 60 minutes leading up to bedtime. During this time, the brain and body begin shifting toward hormonal and neurological states that determine how deeply you will sleep later in the night. What you consume in this window is not trivial. It interacts directly with your cortisol levels, melatonin production, inflammation balance, and the neurological environment that supports overnight brain repair. Certain naturally occurring compounds found in specific drinks can meaningfully support this transition by calming stress responses, supporting sleep hormones, and reducing the biological noise that interferes with deep rest. To understand why this matters, it helps to break down what is actually happening inside the brain during sleep. Think of the brain as a constantly active city. Throughout the day, it is filled with electrical signals, chemical communication, and constant activity. Neurons fire, thoughts form, decisions are made, and in the process, metabolic waste gradually builds up. Among this waste are proteins and cellular byproducts that, when not cleared efficiently, are associated with neurological decline over time. This is where the glymphatic system becomes essential. It functions like a sanitation network running alongside blood vessels in the brain, allowing cerebrospinal fluid to flow through brain tissue and remove waste materials. During deep sleep, this flow increases significantly, effectively washing away accumulated debris from the day. However, this system is not equally active at all times. Research published in physiology journals, including findings from Current Opinion in Physiology, shows that glymphatic activity is minimal when awake and rises sharply during deep sleep stages. In simpler terms, the brain schedules its most important cleaning work for the night when external activity is reduced. The efficiency of this process depends heavily on sleep quality. Light or fragmented sleep reduces the effectiveness of this nightly cleaning cycle, while deep, slow wave sleep allows it to function at full capacity. Unfortunately, this is exactly the type of sleep that tends to decline with age, stress, and hormonal imbalance. As this deep sleep becomes less consistent, the clearance of waste products slows down. Over time, this imbalance may contribute to the accumulation of proteins such as amyloid beta, which are closely associated with Alzheimer's related changes in the brain. Recent clinical research, including a 2024 study published on medical preprint servers like MedRxiv, has strengthened this understanding by showing that glymphatic activity during sleep is directly involved in clearing Alzheimer's related biomarkers from the brain. In other words, during deep sleep, the brain is actively transporting these substances out into the body for removal. This means sleep is not just rest, it is a critical biological maintenance phase where the brain performs essential housekeeping that supports long term cognitive health. As we age, however, this system becomes harder to sustain at optimal levels. Deep sleep duration often decreases, and sleep becomes lighter and more fragmented. This directly affects memory consolidation, mental clarity, and the brain's ability to perform overnight cleanup. What many people experience as normal aging fog is increasingly being linked to disruptions in this system rather than irreversible decline. And this is exactly where the conversation shifts toward practical intervention. Because if sleep is the window in which the brain cleans and repairs itself, then the conditions leading into that sleep become extremely important. This is where specific nighttime drinks used strategically before bed begin to matter in a scientifically meaningful way. Before we move into those specific solutions, there is one important thing to understand. The brain is not passively deteriorating with age. It is continuously responding to inputs, including hormones, nutrients, stress levels, and sleep quality. That means the way you prepare for sleep can either support or disrupt one of the most important biological processes in your body. Now, with that foundation in place, we can move into the first of these sleep supporting drinks and how it interacts with the brain's natural nighttime biology. The first drink that stands out in this discussion is tart cherry juice, and not the generic versions you might find in flavored beverages, but specifically Montmorency tart cherry juice derived from Prunus cerassus. What makes this simple, widely available drink so interesting is that it is not being promoted here as a wellness trend, but as something that has measurable effects on sleep biology and indirectly on the brain systems responsible for memory and cognitive maintenance. Clinical research has shown that older adults who consume tart cherry juice can experience a significant improvement in sleep duration, with some studies reporting increases of up to 84 minutes compared to placebo groups. That is not a minor adjustment. It represents a substantial extension of time spent in the very biological state where the brain performs its most important repair work. Alongside this, sleep efficiency, the percentage of time in bed actually spent asleep, has been shown to improve from around 77% to approximately 84% in controlled conditions. These outcomes are measured through objective sleep tracking, not subjective perception alone. To understand why tart cherry juice has this effect, we need to look at its biochemical composition. One of its most important features is that it naturally contains melatonin, the hormone responsible for regulating the sleep wake cycle. While the amount is not equivalent to pharmaceutical doses, it is still biologically relevant, especially when consumed consistently. In addition to melatonin, tart cherries contain tryptophan, an amino acid that serves as a precursor to serotonin and then melatonin within the body. This means the drink does not only provide a small external source of sleep hormone, it also supports the internal production pathway that the body already uses. Beyond these hormone related effects, tart cherries are also rich in anthocyanins, the pigments responsible for their deep red color. These compounds have strong antioxidant and anti inflammatory properties, which are increasingly recognized as important factors in brain health. Chronic inflammation in the brain is now understood to interfere with normal neuronal function, disrupt sleep quality, and contribute to long term cognitive decline. By reducing this inflammatory burden, anthocyanins may indirectly support both sleep quality and brain maintenance processes. This becomes particularly relevant in older adults because melatonin production naturally declines with age. Research suggests that melatonin levels can drop significantly by as much as 70 to 80% between early adulthood and later life. The pineal gland, which is responsible for melatonin secretion, gradually becomes less active over time. As melatonin decreases, the body's internal circadian rhythm becomes less stable. This instability often leads to delayed sleep onset, lighter sleep stages, and more frequent nighttime awakenings. These changes create a cascading effect. Lower melatonin leads to weaker circadian signaling. Weaker signaling leads to reduced deep sleep leads to less glymphatic activity, and reduced glymphatic activity means less efficient clearance of metabolic waste from the brain overnight. Over time, this chain of events can contribute to the accumulation of proteins associated with neurodegenerative conditions, including amyloid beta. What makes tart cherry juice relevant here is that it appears to intervene in multiple points within this chain. By providing small amounts of melatonin and supporting its production pathway through tryptophan, it helps reinforce the circadian signal. At the same time, its anti inflammatory compounds help create a more stable neurological environment for sleep to occur. The result is not a sedative effect, but a gradual improvement in sleep quality and duration. A systematic review published in 2025, which analyzed multiple intervention studies on tart cherry consumption, found consistent evidence supporting improvements in sleep duration, sleep efficiency, and sleep onset latency. Some of the included studies reported measurable reductions in the time it takes to fall asleep, alongside improved overall sleep quality. While not every study showed identical results, the overall direction of the evidence points toward a meaningful benefit, especially in populations experiencing age related sleep disruption. From a practical standpoint, the most commonly studied approach involves consuming around 8 ounces of pure tart cherry juice approximately 30 to 45 minutes before bedtime. An alternative is using concentrated tart cherry extract mixed with water, which can provide similar compounds in a more cost effective and lower volume form. However, it is important to note that this is not entirely without considerations. Because tart cherry juice contains natural sugars, individuals with blood sugar sensitivity or metabolic conditions should take that into account and consult a healthcare professional if needed. What matters most here is not the idea of a miracle drink, but the recognition that small nutritional inputs can influence sleep biology in measurable ways. By supporting melatonin production, reducing inflammation, and stabilizing circadian signaling, tart cherry juice creates conditions that are more favorable for deep sleep, the exact stage where the brain's cleaning and memory consolidation systems are most active. And once you understand that sleep is not just rest, but an active neurological maintenance phase, it becomes clear why even modest improvements in sleep quality can have downstream effects on cognitive clarity, memory retention, and long term brain health. With that foundation in place, the next step is to look at a second drink that works through a completely different biological pathway, one focused not on melatonin, but on inflammation control and direct neuroprotection during sleep. The second drink in this system takes a very different route into brain health, and it has been used in traditional medicine for centuries long before modern neuroscience began to explain why it works. This is golden milk, a warm blend typically made from milk combined with turmeric, a small amount of black pepper, and optional additions like ginger, cinnamon, or honey. While it may appear simple, the biological activity behind it is far more complex than most people realize, especially when it comes to sleep quality and brain protection during the night. At the center of golden milk's effects is curcumin, the active compound found in turmeric. Curcumin has been extensively studied for its anti inflammatory and antioxidant properties, particularly in relation to brain function. One of its most important characteristics is its ability to cross the blood brain barrier. This barrier is a highly selective filter that protects the brain from harmful substances while allowing only certain molecules to pass through. Many compounds never reach brain tissue at all, which limits their direct neurological impact. Curcumin is one of the rare plant based compounds that can enter the brain environment and interact with neural processes directly. Once inside, curcumin acts on a key underlying factor in cognitive aging, chronic neuroinflammation. To understand this more clearly, imagine brain cells as highly sensitive electronic systems. Under normal conditions, they communicate smoothly and efficiently. But when inflammation is present at a low level over long periods, it creates a kind of constant biological static in the system. This does not necessarily cause immediate damage, but over time it disrupts signaling, stresses neurons, and contributes to gradual functional decline. Curcumin helps reduce this inflammatory signaling, acting like a stabilizing force that protects neural integrity over time. Clinical research supports this role. In a randomized, double blind, placebo controlled trial published in a major psychiatric journal, older adults without dementia who took bioavailable curcumin showed significant improvements in memory performance over an extended period. The improvement reached around 28% in certain cognitive tests over the course of 18 months. More importantly, brain imaging data from similar research has suggested reduced accumulation of amyloid plaques and tau proteins in participants taking curcumin compared to placebo groups. These are the same proteins strongly associated with Alzheimer's disease progression, which makes these findings particularly significant in the context of long term brain health. However, golden milk is not only about curcumin. Its effects on sleep biology come from a combination of ingredients working together. The milk base itself provides tryptophan, an amino acid that plays a direct role in serotonin and melatonin production. This means it supports the body's natural sleep hormone pathways in a similar way to tart cherry juice, but through a different nutritional route. In addition, milk contains casein, a slow digesting protein that can contribute to a mild calming effect as it is broken down over time, supporting relaxation as the body transitions towards sleep. When ginger and cinnamon are added, the drink gains additional anti inflammatory and metabolic support. Ginger has been studied for its role in reducing systemic inflammation and supporting digestive comfort, both of which can indirectly improve sleep quality. Cinnamon has also been explored for its potential effects on brain health, particularly in relation to proteins involved in neurodegenerative processes, although research in this area is still developing. One of the most critical but often overlooked components of golden milk is black pepper. On its own, curcumin has very low bioavailability, meaning the body struggles to absorb and utilize it efficiently. However, black pepper contains a compound called piperine, which dramatically increases curcumin absorption by as much as 2,000% in some studies. This is not a minor enhancement. It is the difference between curcumin passing through the digestive system with limited effect and curcumin reaching meaningful levels in the bloodstream and brain. Timing also plays an important role. When consumed warm, approximately 30 to 45 minutes before bed, golden milk not only delivers its bioactive compounds, but also contributes to parasympathetic nervous system activation. The warmth itself signals the body to shift toward a calmer physiological state, reducing alertness and preparing the system for rest. This creates a combined effect: biochemical support through curcumin and tryptophan, and physiological relaxation through temperature and sensory input. There is also growing interest in curcumin's relationship with brain derived neurotrophic factor, or BDNF. This protein is essential for the growth, survival, and adaptability of neurons. Higher levels of BDNF are associated with better learning capacity and memory function, while lower levels are linked to cognitive decline. Some studies suggest that curcumin may help support BDNF activity, which adds another layer to its potential role in long term brain maintenance. When viewed as a whole, golden milk is not acting as a sedative. Instead, it functions more like a nightly support system for the brain's structural and inflammatory balance. It reduces internal stressors that would otherwise interfere with deep sleep and allows the brain to enter its restorative phases more effectively. At this point, we have two distinct mechanisms working in parallel. The first drink, tart cherry juice, primarily supports sleep initiation and circadian rhythm through melatonin related pathways. The second, golden milk, focuses on reducing inflammation and protecting neural structures during sleep. The final piece of the system addresses a different but equally important factor: the stress hormone that can prevent deep sleep from occurring in the first place. The third and final drink brings everything together by targeting a completely different biological barrier to deep sleep: elevated stress and cortisol dysregulation. Even when melatonin levels are supported and inflammation is reduced, many people still struggle to reach truly restorative sleep because the nervous system remains in a state of alertness. This is where the combination of ashwagandha and chamomile tea becomes important.